Would you like to learn about a new kind of traditional monster? Well, if you're like me, the answer is always yes. And I think the one featured in the tale I'm going to read you will be new to most viewers. I read this for Mike over at the Weapon Collector channel, which I'm sure many of my viewers know, where it'll be part of a much larger Halloween stream. But it's a subject I've always wanted to do a video on, so I'm going to put it here on my channel as well. And in this video, I'll give more information about the creature itself, which is a really fascinating one. The indigenous carvings of it, different renditions, are some of the coolest things you'll ever see. But no, I'm not giving the game away with this picture here. This is, though, from the indigenous culture in question, Greenland's Inuit. And here you can see how awesome some of their other designs are. By the way, this old story I'm going to read to you can be found in my book, this one here, Death in Global Folktales. And it's got the largest collection of death superstitions I've ever seen in print. And that's in addition to the stories, which are the bulk of and point of the book. And now to the story. Apologies for mispronunciations of indigenous terms. It's entitled Nukungwasik, Who Escaped from the Tupilac. Nukungwasik, it is said, had land in a place with many brothers. When the brothers made a catch, they gave him meat for the pot. He himself had no wife. One day he rowed northward in his kayak, and suddenly he took it into his head to row over to a big island which he had never visited before, and now wished to see. He landed and went up to look at the land, and it was very beautiful there. And here he came upon the middle one of his many brothers, busy with something or other down in a hollow, and whispering all the time. So he crawled stealthily towards him, and when he had come closer, he heard him whispering these words. You are to bite Nukungwasik to death. You are to bite Nukungwasik to death. And then it was clear that he was making a Tupilac, and stood there now telling it what to do. But suddenly, Nukungwasik slapped him on the side and said, But where is this Nukungwasik? And the man was so frightened at this that he fell down dead. And then Nukungwasik saw that the man had been letting the Tupilac sniff at his body. And the Tupilac was now alive, and lay there sniffing. But Nukungwasik, being afraid of the Tupilac, went away without trying to harm it. Now he rode home, and there the many brothers were waiting in vain for the middle one to return. At last the day dawned, and then as they were preparing to go out in search for him, the eldest said to Nukungwasik, Nukungwasik, come with us, we must search for him. And so Nukungwasik went with them, but as they found nothing, he said, Would it not be well to go and make search on that island where no one ever goes? And having gone on to the island, Nukungwasik said, Now you can go look on the southern side. When the brothers reached the place, he heard them cry out, and the eldest said, O wretched one, why did you ever meddle with such a thing as this? And they could be heard weeping all together about the dead man. And now Nukungwasik went up to them, and there lay the Tupilac, still alive, and nibbling at the body of the dead man. But the brothers buried him there, making a mound of stones above him, and then they went home. Nukungwasik lived there as the oldest in the place, and died at last after many years. Here I ended this story. I know no more. That is the story. I love how traditional tales from all over the world have a way of ending like that. The storyteller formally declares that they are done and know no more. Now let's talk about the Tupilac in a little bit more detail. These were kind of a Frankenstein, vampire, voodoo zombie combined. They're an undead monster because they're made with various parts of animal and human corpses. And the creepiest part of the lore is that the human parts could come from children and were maybe even best if you really wanted to up the dark magic. And then in that mixture, you add a personal item belonging to the intended victim. So in that way, there's almost a touch of the voodoo doll as well. Once assembled, you animate the creature through song. Interesting how a lot of Native American cultures kind of song, music, or chanting as the way that you work magic. Very different from like the Western European traditions. Speaking of those traditions, we all know how vampire lore has kind of a sexual subtext. And no, that's not just because of Dracula, pictured here. Some of the earlier Gothic tales were pointing in that direction as well. Even if it was more just that the vampire or proto-vampire, the undead man was pursuing a woman to make him his wife, which could mean to drag her down into the grave with him, etc. And of course, it wasn't just men in Western lore, because you had the succubus as well. Why am I bringing all that up? Because Tupilac creation definitely had its own NSFW content. I've seen different versions of it described, but it all amounts to, let's just say, physical romance between the creator and his creation. Certainly makes what Dr. Frankenstein did look tame in comparison. The creator, by the way, was a shaman, so when creating a Tupilac, obviously not one using his powers for good. And our story here isn't the only warning that this can go wrong, and maybe the subtext is should, because you shouldn't be playing around with dark magic. So there's lore about this backfiring specifically on the creator himself, as in our story. Well, there's our monster tale with a little bit of additional information. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching.